The Whispering Woods did not just sit at the edge of the village. It breathed. For Amma, the sound was not whine through leaves, but a low, rhythmic vibration that hummed against her skin. She stood at the invisible line where the tall grass turned to gnarled, twisted roots, her toes hovering over the threshold. Behind her, the familiar sounds of the village, the clatter of tools, the distant calls of neighbors felt thin and distant. "Do not go further," he whispered, his voice tight. "The elders speak of those who crossed this line and never returned." Amma did not look at him. She watched the shadows between the trees shift and coil, sensing a secret waiting to be unraveled. She stepped forward, her foot sinking into the soft, dark earth. Kojo took one final look at the village, then followed her into the gloom. The air inside the woods did not just cool, it grew heavy, pressing against their lungs. Every familiar sound from the village vanished, replaced by a profound, suffocating silence that made their own heartbeats sound like drums. Amma pressed forward, her eyes scanning the gnarled canopy. Kojo kept his back to a thick trunk, his hand gripping his carving tool until his fingers ached. Then, the darkness ahead fractured. A soft, ethereal glow pulsed between the trees, rhythmic and steady, like a heartbeat made of light. It did not flicker. It beckoned. Amma moved toward it, her caution abandoned. Kojo followed, his feet dragging against the damp moss. They broke into a hidden clearing where the light coalesced into a deer-like form, its body shimmering with an inner luminescence. Amma felt the burden settle onto her shoulders. Kojo looked at the creature, then at Amma. They were the only ones left to stop the rot. As they pressed deeper, the air grew thick with a metallic tang, and the silence was replaced by a low, dissonant hum. Then, the shadows detached themselves from the trees. They did not attack with claws. They attacked with memory. A whisper curled around Kojo's ear, mimicking his grandmother's voice, reciting the exact warnings he had ignored. He stopped, his breath hitching as the darkness coiled around his ankles like cold smoke. "You are lost," the shadows hissed. Kojo's knees buckled. He dropped his carving tool, his hands flying to his ears, but the whispers seeped through his fingers. Amma stood a few paces ahead, her own silhouette flickering as if the light were being drained from her skin. She turned, her face pale. The path ahead remained hidden, obscured by a wall of shifting, ink-black fog that pulsed in time with his frantic, uneven heartbeat. They broke through the wall of fog to find it. The ancient tree stood at the center of a dead clearing, its bark twisted into agonized shapes. A thick, oily darkness pulsed from its core, leaking into the soil and killing the grass beneath their feet. Kojo stumbled, his legs trembling, but Amma reached back and grabbed his hand. Her grip was iron. She pulled him forward, closer to the rot, until the cold emanating from the trunk bit into their skin. The glowing creature emerged from the shadows, its luminescence dimming as it gestured toward the blight. Amma did not hesitate. She placed her palm against the gnarled wood. Kojo hesitated for a heartbeat, then pressed his hand over hers. A spark jumped between their fingers. It was not a flicker, but a roar of golden energy that surged up their arms. The darkness shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, as the light flooded the tree.